What's going on, everybody? It's Christmas Eve. It's the day before Christmas. And whenever we get to a holiday like this and a time where we spend time with our family and kind of prioritize the things that really matter in life, it's always good to do some reflection and then some looking forward. And that's a lot of what this video is about today. And the point of card collecting is to enjoy ourselves. It's to have fun, and it's to distract ourselves from the stresses of life and enjoy something that brings us peace and brings us comfort and brings us joy. Just like Christmas and holidays and being around family. So I first got to start out and say, you guys continue to spoil me. This week, I got a couple more care packages, and I wanted to share what you guys got for me. So first, I mentioned a few weeks ago how I didn't have a Greg Maddux rated rookie card. And I mean, who doesn't like Greg Maddux? The guy was an unbelievable pitcher. He could make the ball go up, down, left, and right. I mean, he was incredible. And so I got an email from Scott, and he said, I'm going to send you one. I got one. I'm going to send it to you. So he sent me a little care package with some stuff. So he sent me this 87 rated rookie Greg Maddux card, which I've wanted for years and I just never got one. Now I have one. So thank you for that. And then he threw some other cool stuff in there. He knows I'm a Warren Spahn guy. So he threw this Warren Spahn card in there. And he threw in a Randy Johnson rookie. And I'm always talking about TTMs, I'm talking about autographs, I'm talking about my childhood. And one of the elite prospects from when I was a kid was Andy Bennis. Remember him? You threw in a signed Andy Bennis in there too. So super cool, Scott, thank you. Super generous to think of me and send me those cards. And then David sent me a care package a while ago. We continue to communicate. A really great guy. And he sent me a book. And a lot of you have probably read this book or heard of this book. He's a pretty popular author. I've not read this book, but I've heard about it. And I've heard about how great it is. And it's got a bunch of stories of different, famous events and moments in baseball history. And so it's broken up into short sections, which is great for, just picking it up and reading a couple of them and then putting it down. Instead of some books that have these long chapters and you're reading for a long extended period of time. So I'm excited for this. But the coolest part about it, in addition to his kind note that he sent, is he sent a list of some of his favorite portions of the book. Different sections, different pages that he really enjoyed. And so it's really cool because now when I get to one of those sections, I'll be able to really go, oh yeah, this is one that David liked a lot. So that was super cool. So sending me this book, sending me these cards, super cool. Thank you guys so much. Very, very generous. I feel like Christmas came early. So, as we look at this particular video, let me remind you of the question from last week, which was, what are your plans for 2024? And what are you specifically looking to target or move into in 2024 or do differently in 2024 that you didn't do in 23? So what's something new that you're looking to target or a new direction for your collection? And huge variety of responses, which is the point, which is great. That's why having this community where we can share thoughts and stuff makes it so much fun. I can tell you that hearing other people's responses, watching other people's videos, having discussions with other friends and text messages and people that I've met has really, really impacted my personal collection and my collecting preferences and interests over the last year, more so than I ever remember. So let's look at 5 responses from all of you that just kind of explain where you're headed, and then I'll give you a short take on my thoughts on that and why I chose that particular comment and why I think that they were ones that stood out to me and especially interesting. Let's check out the first one here. Next year, I'd like to venture into collecting pre-war cards, specifically some of the candy and gum cards from the early 1930s. I really like the DeLong, George Miller, and Diamond Stars releases. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's been the biggest change for me this year, is getting more into pre-war stuff. I mean, when 2023 started, I had very little pre-war stuff. I was just starting to dabble in T206, but that was about it. It's not that I didn't like the cards. It's not that I didn't like Gaudi's or, T206s or T205s or turn of the century cards or, the caramel cards, or it's not that I didn't like them. It's just I just didn't have any, and they didn't seem super realistic to me. But I really started to liquidate some of my cards personally from the 50s and 60s because those things started to intrigue me more and more. And it's one of the influences I think that the YouTube community has had on me, because as I watch other people do YouTube videos and talk about, their collection and share their collection, I find myself as I go to card shows get more and more drawn to those cards that you just don't see very often. And it's like, I'll go to, I don't know, this year I probably went to 10 or 12 card shows. Whenever I go to a card show, I do a vlog on it. So I would say it's 10 or 12. I could look it up. But every single show I go to is going to have a Nolan Ryan rookie card. And the Nolan Ryan rookie card is very cool. But every show has one. Every show has, a 1960 Mickey Mantle card. And it's a very cool card. But every show has one. But it's not very often that you see a really nice T205 Walter Johnson. You don't see it very often. So when you see it, I'm very drawn to it. And I've found myself moving in that direction. Like, I have some Pete Rose cards. Every show I go to has multiple Pete Rose cards, but not every show has some, Allen and Ginter cards. So when I see Allen and Ginter card, I'm like, whoa, check that out. And I like that rarity, and that is interesting to me. And I like learning more about them. And more than that, I feel like there's an extra excitement for me when I am looking at those things and I'm learning about those things, that I'm just kind of going with it. And I'm not trying to steer my collection in a certain direction. My direction will be going this way, and then all of a sudden I'll go, what is that over there? And then I head that way. And I'm just letting it go wherever it goes. So that's kind of something I totally understand. Now, when we talk about the three sets that were mentioned here, so you got the DeLong set. The DeLong set is a gum company set. It's 1933, a smaller set. There was, like 25 cards or so. I think it might have been 24 cards, something like that. And is a very attractive set. Really bright colors. Couple of big cards in there. There's a Gehrig in there that if you saw it, you'd probably recognize. In fact, I'll put it up on the screen here. There are some cool things. And in the early 30s, there are, some big stars are starting to show up, like Jimmy Fox is starting to show up, Mel Ott, Hank Greenberg. There's a few big names that show up in some of these early to mid 30 sets. So I totally get and oddball, what does that mean? It just means not a major manufacturer that is widely known, I suppose. And DeLong is not a widely known major manufacturer by a lot of people. Now, some people go, what are you talking about? I've had those cards for 40 years. Yeah, but it's not like Topps or Bowman or Leaf or something like that, where most people recognize the names because some of them are still manufacturing cards. Now, you mentioned a couple of sets. So there's the George Miller set. And the funny thing about the George Miller set, I saw a card at the couple of George Miller cards at a show I was at not that long ago, and my friend said, "Oh, what do you think of these George Millers?" And I said, that's my grandpa's name. My dad's dad is George Miller, so obviously it's a name I'm going to recognize. But another set that is a very cool set, a very colorful set. A little bit of a different type of color set. It's not the bright, bold colors. It's more like pastel colors. And some people are very drawn to it. Again, it's a smaller set that comes from candy. I think it was toffee instead of gum, like the DeLong or like some of the other companies that we hear of. But another very cool set with a very strong following. And then the Diamond Stars is the one that probably more people are familiar with because it's a bigger set. There's over 100 cards instead of, 30 to 40 cards like the other two, where because it's a bigger set, there's more of them out there, there's bigger production. The other thing about the Diamond Star set is it was a 3-year run. It was 34 to 36. And so, they were produced for 3 years. There are more cards out there, and there are more of the big names, right? There's a Fox, there's a Greenberg, there's a, Rogers Hornsby. There are a lot of names in there, Lefty Grove. There's a lot of names in that set that a lot of people recognize, and the other ones being a smaller set, it's just not as broad. So the Diamond Stars people probably see more frequently than the other two. I think all three are cool. I personally, I see the DeLongs the least. I don't know if it's the region I live, but I'd say I rarely see the DeLongs, and I rarely see the George Millers, but I see them occasionally. But I see the Diamond Stars fairly frequently. Like, every other card show, someone will have some of those. But they're all cool. And I totally get being interested in them. And whether it's an early set that is a more well-known set like the Gaudi set, or a smaller set like, the DeLong set, I totally get it. And I totally think that they're a cool thing to go after. But for me, predominantly, I'm really getting more and more drawn to the pre-World War II and even some pre-World War I stuff, and it's really fun. So if you've not dipped your toe in that, if you've not gone to the pre-war side yet or tried it, consider it. If you're open to expanding your collection this year, be open to expanding it there. I think that you're going to get rapidly pulled in like I have. My plan for collecting in 2024 is to be very intentional with my selections of cards. I've transitioned from just wanting a certain card into wanting cards with good centering on the front. So this coming year, instead of just buying when I see something I want, I plan on being much more selective and deliberate. I think this makes perfect sense. It's very, very similar to the housing market. It's very similar to the car buying market. When there's a feeding frenzy, when things are exploding in price and people are fighting over stuff, it's very difficult to stay disciplined in what you're buying. It's just, there's a feeding frenzy. If housing prices are going through the roof, people are like, that house is good enough. We need to buy it because if we don't get this house, we may miss out. And then the next house is going to be more expensive. So let's just settle for this house. But then when there's a market where houses are sitting for months, you can go, no, that house is missing this one thing that I really want. So I'm not going to pick that one. I'm going to go look for another one. So, yeah, it makes perfect sense that being in a slower card market, that we're able to be much pickier about what we are interested in. You know, my buddy Dylan from Double D Vintage Cards, he is adamant now, just adamant. He's only going to be buying cards that are pretty much perfectly centered. And his argument is they're the rarest cards. The rarest cards are perfectly centered cards. Out of every 1,000 cards that was produced in vintage cards, there are very few that are perfectly centered. So, yeah, there are certain players that are kind of rare and certain sets that are kind of rare. But what's also rare is a perfectly centered card. So that is what he's put his focus on. So I totally hear what you're saying. You're not alone. There are people out there that are like, centering is it. It is the thing because it is so rare. And being in a market where, if you don't get this, 1959 Bob Gibson, a notoriously off-centered card, there will be another one. There will be another one and another one and another one. And when the prices are going up so fast, you're afraid that you're going to get priced out. But if the prices aren't going up or even going down, like some things are going down still and will continue to go down, you can be more patient because you don't have to worry about getting priced out. So being much more deliberate about your decision making in 2024, I think makes perfect sense. And it's a great point. And it's something we all should consider is don't freak out because you're probably not going to get priced out. Now, I do have to throw out there, if it's a card that rarely comes up for sale, has a really low population, that's different because you don't know when you'll see another one. So in that case, you just kind of have to maybe pay up a little bit and maybe have to not have the perfect one because you may not see another one for a year or two. That's the exception. But if it's a common card, a 1955, Ernie Banks, there are going to be multiple of that card coming up for sale over the next few weeks, time and time and time again. So make sure it's one that you really like. My change for 2024 might be to get more cards from other sports like football, basketball, or hockey. Now, you guys know I love vintage football cards. I really like vintage basketball cards, and I have some. I collect Chamberlain. I collect Oscar Robertson. I collect, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I collect Dr. J. Some of the guys before that, before the gap in basketball cards, it's hard to afford the Bob Cousy's of the world and, the Bill Russells of the world. But a lot of those guys that were, early 70s, I collect them and I like them very much. And I love vintage football. I collect Unitas and Star and Autogram and Gale Sayers and Jim Brown. Those are kind of the main ones that I collect. And I love those cards a ton. And I've found myself looking at hockey recently. There are quite a few viewers of this channel that are from Canada. And they're big hockey collectors. And there are people that are hockey collectors that are big hockey collectors. And a lot of them are starting to kind of rub off on me a little bit. I've found myself looking at some older hockey cards. And I haven't bought any yet, but I'm viewing them more and I'm searching them more and I'm learning about them more. And there's like a 1954 Parkhurst Gordie Howe that I was looking at the other day. I'm like, that's a pretty cool looking card. I got to admit, that's a cool card. I didn't buy it, but I really thought about it. But I think being open to expanding is key. And with that said, it's funny you mentioned this because I just recently kind of opened the door to collecting vintage golf cards. And over the last 2 or 3 weeks, I've bought a handful of vintage golf cards. And it's been really, really fun. Like, really fun. Why has it been fun? I don't know if it's just because it's completely new. I don't know. But, I mean, you know, there are some unbelievable vintage golfers. Some are some huge names in the US, and some are some huge names in England. And I've just enjoyed it. And it's added a lot of interest for me over the past month. And so before then, I had no vintage golf cards, like 0. And now I've got a handful, which you'll see on my December pickups video here in a week or two. But it's fun to expand to something new. So if you've not yet gone beyond just one sport, and I know a lot of us are just baseball, and some of us are, you know, baseball and something. But consider it. Consider it this coming year. Consider picking a team or a player from a different sport and just broadening your collection a little bit. I think you're going to be surprised at how exciting it is when this whole new door gets kicked open and this whole new influx of potential targets means for your enjoyment of the hobby. Consider that. Seriously, try it. In 2024, the new category or area I will look at for my collection are vintage oddball cards, or cards not produced by major manufacturers. Cards like Bond Bread or Wonder Bread, Johnson's Cookies, NFLPA cards, etc. My collection has most of my major cards I desire, and I am not looking to buy a lot of volume, but picking up some of these overlooked vintage cards is something I plan to do in 2024. So I think that this answer brings up a topic that I've been wanting to talk about. And the topic is, like, I know we're all collectors. Well, not all of us. There are some of us that are just investors, I suppose. But most of us would consider ourselves collectors. But we also consider part of our collection to be an investment. And I understand that. So probably most people would consider themselves mostly collector, little bit of investor. A few people would be mostly investor, a little bit of collector. And some people would be mostly collector and barely any investor. But we don't want to buy something, you know, nobody wants to buy something that, like, is going to become worthless or worth very, very little. So one of the things that I think holds a lot of us back from expanding our collection to oddball cards. Again, what does that mean? I think just non-major manufacturers. But the reason I think that a lot of us kind of hold back from that is because of how liquid major manufacturer cards are versus the non-major manufacturer cards. For example, you know, if I were to look up or if I were to sell a 1952 Topps, you know, Willie Mays card, there are hundreds and thousands of people who I know would like to have that card. There are thousands and thousands of collectors that want a 52 Topps Willie Mays. But are there that number of collectors that want a Willie Mays Redman card? Now, a lot of people do, but a lot of people don't. So what happens is when you go oddball, again, I don't really like that term because it sounds kind of like it has a negative connotation, and I don't think it should. But if you go non-major manufacturer card, it's less liquid, meaning it's harder to sell because there aren't as many people that are currently in the market for it. If I buy a 1963 Topps Willie Mays card, which I did recently, when I buy that card, I don't really feel like it's that big of a risk because I know if I put that card up for sale, there are a lot of people that would like to have it. A lot of people would like to have a 1963 Topps Willie Mays. And there are people who would like to have, one of the Redman Willie Mays cards too, but not as many. Like if I were to put up a 63 Topps Willie Mays, it's a really nice 5. In a week, I'm going to have 20 plus watchers of that card, right? On eBay. They're going to click it, they're going to favorite it, they're going to watch it. But if I put up a Redman Willie Mays card, I might only get 5 watchers. And that's intimidating. That is preventing a lot of us from going out beyond the normal, the standard stuff. And it's holding you back because you're like, it's not going to be as easy to sell if I decide I don't want it. And you're a little bit less convinced that it's going to go up in value like the other things will. And I get that because I've been there myself. I've been there myself and gone, if I buy that card, will anybody want it someday? And again, you're saying, but I'm a collector, who cares? But all of us, well, not all of us, but the overwhelming majority of us have a little hint of, we consider this collection to also be an investment, which is part of the reason we allow ourselves to spend money on it. So I understand the apprehension of getting into the non-standard stuff. But I can tell you that recently I've bought a few non-standard cards. And it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun. So one thing to consider in 2024 is maybe kind of dial down the investment part of your collecting habits and consider dialing up your collecting parts. Now, should you do that? No, not necessarily, but maybe consider it. Depending on your financial situation, your life situation, your debt situation, your future situation, everybody's different. But we only get one chance at this life thing, right? We get one crack at this. You only live once. So make sure that you're not forgetting to enjoy yourself and actually collect some of the things that you'd really like to collect because you're afraid that it won't have value down the road. There are people that let me give you one quick example to show you that I'm not just speaking, because one thing I don't want you guys to ever think is I am telling you to do things, which I don't ever think I'm telling you to do. I'm just throwing out ideas for you to consider is what I feel like I do. But I'm throwing out the idea of consider collecting something that you really like that may not be super popular by the mainstream. I have like a dozen pirate cards from 1888 Allen and Ginter. Pirate cards. There are so few people that are interested in those cards. I've never met anybody else who's interested in them, but I love them. Like, I think they're so cool. And I picked up more this month. I'll show you on my December pickups video. I think they're absolutely beautiful, and I think they are so cool. And do I think they're going to be skyrocket in value over the next 50 years? No, I don't think they're going to skyrocket in value. But I like them, and it's my collection, and I like having them. So if there's something that you really like, allow yourself to have part of your collection be something that isn't an investment, it's just an enjoyment. Because at the end of the day, you want to enjoy your cards, you want to enjoy your collection, you want to enjoy yourself. That's the whole point. So consider that. I'm on a mission. I'm taking 2024 by the horns. I'm working on a Jackie run. The goal is to accumulate Jackie Robinson cards, and by the time the 2024 National comes around, I would like to trade or sell into a 52 Mantle. I will continue to pivot my collection until I have enough high-valued cards that will allow me to trade or sell for that precious 52 Topps Mantle. Oh, man. Yeah, I mean, the 52 Mantle, can anybody go wrong picking up a 52 Mantle? I mean, it's sort of like the card in the hobby. I think most people would like to have one. Most of us will never have one because of the cost. You know, I just did a video on Friday about consolidating your collection. And it's like, you know, trading up, basically. Like trading, you know, these 5 cards for this big card that you've long wanted. I totally get that. And at the moment, that's the kick I'm on. At the moment, I'm going to sell off some of my smaller cards to buy some of these cards that I've wanted for the last 35 years. And I totally respect that. But I also totally respect the guy who has a ton of stuff. Full runs of tons of players. I totally respect that too. And I've literally gone back and forth in my whole collecting journey on what the right move is. Because there's not a right move. It's just, what's your move right now? You can't go wrong with Jackie Robinson cards. Piling up Jackie Robinson cards is like piling up bars of gold. There is always going to be a demand for Jackie Robinson cards. It is a very safe investment. Now, have Jackie Robinson cards gone down over the last year? Sure. Did they go down because people don't like Jackie Robinson anymore? No. I think they went down because they got a little carried away and there's a correction in the market. But they're not a card that will someday we'll find out, oh, those cards, nobody wants a Jackie Robinson card anymore. That's not going to happen. So it's a very safe investment. It's a very safe collectible. And quite frankly, it's a meaningful collectible. Like I just mentioned the other day, I can't believe I don't have a Jackie Robinson card. Like that has to change in 2024. It has to change. I'm going to have, a year from now, I'm going to have a Jackie Robinson card. It 100% has to happen. And moving toward the bigger card, positioning yourself to get that card that you really, really want, and liquidating part of your collection to get the card that you really want, I totally respect it. I've been doing it myself. I don't blame you at all. And I say, go get it. If the 52 Mantle is your ultimate goal in this collecting journey, go get it this year. And for some of you, it's not the 52 Mantle. For some of you, you know, maybe it's the 57 Unitas, right? Maybe it's the 50, you know, autogram. Maybe it's the 54 Aaron. Maybe it's the 33 Ruth. Whatever the card is, it's your ultimate goal. I don't think you can really go wrong if you move up and consolidate toward that bigger card. Just like I did by getting that Jim Brown this past month. I totally get it. And I totally respect trying to move up for a massive card that you've always wanted. Now, great answers again this month. I told you guys from the beginning, the whole point of my channel is not for me to have a soapbox to get up in front of and just talk and have people listen to me. It's to create a community of fellow collectors, to create a place and a platform for us to share and exchange ideas. And it has been eating away at my stomach for a week that I'm like 4 days behind on responding to comments on my channel right now. But Lucy had a soccer tournament last month. I've had family gatherings for Christmas and holiday stuff. I was grading finals and getting my grades in. And at the same time, I'm trying to also continue to create new videos and keep that going. So I'm behind. But trust me, I will get caught up. And it's important to me to continue the two-way communication of you sharing your thoughts and me sharing my response, because that's the whole point of this. With that, as we head into the last week of Christmas, I'll say a couple of things. First, I've got a couple of big things planned for the next week. I'm planning on doing a whatnot sale because I think it'd be fun. I've got a video coming out where I'm going to do a collaboration with my buddy Darren from Return to Collecting. That's going to post on New Year's Eve. So if you're looking to kill an hour on New Year's Eve, we'll post that and we're going to share some big opinions about 2023 and 2024. And we're going to share some of our pickups. We're going to talk about some of our targets. I'm really excited for that. I'm going to be a guest on a collaboration with Sammy Thunder on his channel. Sammy's a great guy. If you're not a subscriber of Sammy, subscribe to Sammy. Subscribe to For Collectors for Collectors. Sammy is one of the 4 of them, along with 3 other great collectors and great guys. The question I have for you, finally, Greg, get to the point. What's the question for this week? My question for this week is, if you look back on 2023, because I like to look forward. Let's try not to look back and regret too much. Let's try not to do that. But at the same time, if we consider the decisions that we've made over time and where we're headed, sometimes we go, I learned from that. I learned from that mistake or from that good decision. You can learn from good and bad decisions, and bad experiences can be learning experiences, and good experiences can be learning experiences. But when you look back over all of 2023, what's the one thing that you learned during 2023 that has made the biggest impact? Is it not buying something that you wish you had bought? Is it buying something that you wish you hadn't? Is it something with the grading industry? Is it something with modern cards versus vintage cards? Is it something about collecting versus investing? Over 2023, what is the biggest takeaway for you that you've learned based on your experience, based on conversation, based on everything that transpired during the year? What's your biggest takeaway from 2023 that you plan to implement for 2024? Let me know what you think.